Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste and welcome back to the video course on Watershed Management. Today in the last module of this video course, module number 10, on the topic of water conservation and recycling, we will be discussing in this module mainly water conservation, perspectives on recycle and reuse, wastewater reclamation. So, in today's lecture number 38, today we will be discussing about water conservation. So, some of the important topics covered in today's lecture include water conservation, social, industrial, domestic, commercial and agricultural conservations, efficient water use, action plans, water uses association, water audit. Some of the keywords for today's lecture include water conservation, efficient water use, water uses association and water audit. So, as we were discussing earlier also, so when we discuss about the watershed management, so we are mainly looking to the various aspects of water as a resource, as an economical good, as a social good. So, when we look into the watershed management in a holistic way, so the water availability, water efficient water use, all these issues coming to picture. So, that way one of the important aspects in watershed management with respect to water is water conservation. So, today we will be discussing more details on the aspects of water conservation. So, when we discuss about water conservation, it can be with respect to various uses like domestic uses, then the agricultural uses, industrial uses, commercial uses like that. So, within this perspective only we will be discussing about the water conservation. So, water conservation means putting the available water resource for the best beneficial use with all the technologies at our command. So, if an area is concerned, say depending upon the water availability, some areas may be more water will be available and some area less water will be available. So, depending upon the area, depending upon the conditions, so water conservation we can define as the water resource utilization in the best beneficial way, or say best beneficial use with all the available technologies including modern technologies for the best beneficial use. So, that way water conservation refers to the reducing the usage of water and recycling of wastewater for different purposes such as cleaning, manufacturing, agricultural, irrigation, etc. So, various uses, various sectors of uses like say agriculture sector or the domestic sector or industrial sector. So, we are looking to how much water we can reduce, but of course, with appropriate usage, but without wasting water, say by reducing the usage, and then say how we can effectively say reduce the wastewater, and then how we can reuse the wastewater and how we can recycle the wastewater. So, that way when we look into water conservation, so we are looking to any beneficial reduction in water loss, use and preservation of water quality. So, we are looking to the beneficial reduction. So, all the our uses should be met, but say it should be in a reduced way, in a beneficial way, and then a reduction in water use accomplished by implementation of water conservation or water efficiency measures. So, when we look into water conservation, we have to discuss about the efficient water usage. So, that way how efficiently say what kind of measures we can adopt as far as water conservation is concerned. So, in an efficient way what we can do. And third aspect is, so how the improved water management practices, so that we can reduce or enhance the beneficial use of water. Say for example, when we look into the agricultural water usage, so say as far as irrigation is concerned, we can there are number of methodologies as far as irrigation is concerned. We can simply flood the farm or with the agricultural land, or we can say supply water through furrows or various small channels, or we can apply the water through sprinkler irrigation, or we can apply the water through drip irrigation. So, whatever the way we utilize the water for irrigation, so the effect, I mean the water that will be available to the plants or the crops may be the same, but the water we can say reduce by using the advanced technologies like sprinkler irrigation or drip irrigation. So, that way we can save large amount of water, say as far as that particular usage is concerned. So, that is what say within the context of water conservation. So, that we can save water and that water can be utilized for other purposes. So, that way a water conservation means the conservation measures is an action, say it can be a behavioral change, or it can be a device or technology or improved design or process implemented to reduce water loss, waste or use. So, here there are some keywords like water loss. So, we have to reduce the water loss. So, we have to say reduce the wastage, and then say whatever the effective utilization or use is concerned, that also we reduce, but of course, by meeting the appropriate demand in an efficient way. So, that way we have to look into water efficiency. So, the water efficiency is a tool of water conservation that results in more efficient water use and thus reduces the water demand. So, as I mentioned, when the water usage efficiency increases, so like say when we are going from flooding type irrigation to the drip irrigation, then we can see that large amount of water can be reduced as far as irrigation is concerned, or that say that way we can reduce the demand of water. So, that way we will be increasing the water efficiency. So, that is what is we are looking for, and that is in terms of water conservation. So, the value and cost effectiveness of a water efficiency measures must be evaluated in relation to its effects on the use and cost of other natural resources. So, even though this when we look into water conservation, of course, most of the time we have to do a benefit cost analysis, and then we have to see that say the way which we are doing this. I mean, if water is available at a cheap rate, and then if we have to use, we have to put large amount of money as a capital investment for such schemes like drip irrigation, then the benefit cost ratio it will be say it will be less. So, that way, so we have to sometimes we have to look into, but now in an effective way what we are talking is water conservation means say we are trying to reduce the use as much as possible, and then we have to increase the water efficiency. So, let us look into what are the necessities as far as water conservation is concerned. So, as we discussed earlier, now there is a say the in many parts of the world, say the availability of fresh water is reducing and demand is increasing. So, that way we can see that say if we can reduce the usage, so or we can increase the water efficiency, then say that is the need of the hour. So, that the available water we can use for various purposes in a more effective way. So, that way water conservation say is the one of the important or the important necessity of the hour, or necessity as far as watershed management is concerned. So, water conservation is to restore the fast deteriorating ecosystem and to meet the inevitable emergency of shortage even for drinking and domestic water in the near future. So, we can see that say as we are discussing some of the lectures, the water demand is increasing, and then water say quality problems are increasing. So, to meet this shortage of available fresh water, so we have to go for water conservation, or we have to increase our water use efficiency. So, water conservation generally aims at matching the demand and supply. So, with respect to the demand and how much is available, so we have to meet this, and then when we are increasing the efficiency or when we are going for water conservation, so we will be able to meet most of the needs in an effective way. So, water resources theoretically you can see that it is renewable through hydraulic cycle, but then of course, there is problems like the quality of the water, say like contamination. However, water is renewable is only the quantity, but pollution, contamination, then problems like climate change, then temporal and seasonal variations, have affected the water quality and reduced the amount of usable water. So, we can see that in most parts of the world water is available, but that available water is not usable water, since most of the water sources are polluted. So, the polluted water we cannot use in many cases, like even for irrigation. So, say forget about the domestic or the drinking or other uses, but even for irrigation the water, say many parts of the world water has become unusable. So, that way we have to see that, say we can, how we can reduce the usage with respect to the available usable water. So, that way water conservation practices, especially say in urban areas, by industries, municipal users and domestic users, can reduce the demand as much as by 1/3, in addition to minimizing the pollution of surface and groundwater resources. So, here two important points. So, here especially say some of the analysis say in many areas, especially in urban areas or in cities, have shown that say through our effective water conservation measures, we can reduce the usage, say maybe by 1/3 in many of the industrial, agricultural or domestic uses. And this is not only the reduction in the usage, but that way when we are using less water, then the wastewater, say the amount of wastewater generated will be reduced. So, that way also we are minimizing the pollution of surface water and the available groundwater resources. So, we can see that the necessity of water conservation is, say, to meet the demand with respect to the available water and increase the water use efficiency, and then due to the water stress in many parts of the world, we have to look into the various options of water conservation. So, within this perspective, let us look into the goals of water conservation. So, as far as water conservation goals are concerned, so as we discussed earlier also, this is the issue of sustainability. So, the system, say as a watershed or the available water resources, it should be sustainable. So, we have to look into the sustainability issues when we look into the water conservation. So, sustainability means to ensure the availability for future generations, that means here the water, and then withdrawal of fresh water from an ecosystem should not exceed its natural replacement rate. So, on an annual basis, if you take the available water within an ecosystem, whether in as a surface water resource or a groundwater resource, so whatever we are utilizing, say on an annual basis, so that should be replenished or replaced. So, we should not exceed what is replacing the usage. So, that way we have to see. So, then we can say that the system is sustainable. So, the sustainability is very important as far as water conservation is concerned. Then another aspect is energy conservation. So, when we look into water, so we have to say that when the water level is going down, say especially in aquifers, we have to pump water from deeper wells. So, that way we have to use more energy. So, water pumping, then water delivery and wastewater treatment facilities, all this consumes a significant amount of energy. So, that way when we are conserving the water, we are also conserving the energy. So, indirectly we are conserving the energy. So, an analysis throughout the world shows about 15% of total energy consumption what is presently say consumed by the society or consumed by the world is for water management. So, it can be say just like pumping the water, then say distributing the water, then the related issues like wastewater treatment, wastewater management. So, for all these we can see that about 15% of total electricity consumption is for the water related or water management. So, that way when we are conserving the water, we can see that we are also conserving the energy. So, we are becoming environment friendly, we are becoming energy friendly. And then third aspect is say habitat conservation. So, when we are minimizing the human water use, so that helps to preserve freshwater habitats for local wildlife, for the ecosystem, migrating water for, as well as reducing the need to build new dams and other water diversion infrastructure. So, most of the time we can see that when we are using when the use is increasing or the water demand is increasing, we have to construct more dams, more diversion canals, so like that. So, that way when we are reducing the use or when we are conserving the water, so we can reduce the number of dams, when we can reduce the water diversion infrastructure. So, like that. So, that way what we are looking for water conservation is reduce the water consumption per capita. So, that way per capita demand is reduced or the consumption is reduced, so that we can conserve more water, and indirectly we can save more energy or more energy conservation takes place, and the habitat or the system become more sustainable. So, these are the some of the important goals as far as water conservation is considered. So, now when we look into water conservation, we have to see various aspects, say just like social aspects, agricultural aspects, then ecological or environmental aspects, or the commercial aspects, like that. So, let us look into some of these important aspects with reference to the water conservation. So, most of the water conservation programs, we can see that these water conservation programs are initiated at local level by municipal water utilities or regional governments. So, most of the water conservation programs are initiated by either water authorities or water boards or local governments, panchayats, like that. So, that way we can see that the bodies or the authorities which are local level, which are directly interacting with the people, they can effectively say go for water conservation, or they can advise the people for water conservation. So, some of the strategies which we can adopt for water conservation within the social perspective is like, so we have to go for public outreach campaigns, so that the people should know that we have to conserve water, so that will be much better than overuse and then wastage, all those things. So, that way public outreach campaigns are important strategies. Then tiered water rates. So, we can see that nowadays in a country like India, we are in many parts of India we are distributing water on a bulk rate. That means, say for a household or for a society wise, say we give water on a bulk rate, I mean say per capita, say 150 liters per capita per day or something like that. So, that way then what happens is that, say the water, the rate goes down, the price of water goes down, and then the people who are using more water, they are also paying less. So, that way there will be a tendency to waste the water. So, instead of this bulk payment or bulk rate for water, if we can put tiered water rates, I mean say if you use say per capita, say if 50 liters per capita per day is this much rate, and when it goes to 100, say 50 to 100, then the rate changes, the rate increases, 100 to 200, the rate further increases, like that. And then we can see that some of the other strategies include like restrictions on outdoor water use, such as lawn watering and car washing. So, in many places, many housing societies and then institutions, we can see that they use so much water for fresh water for lawn watering and then car washing or other kinds of washing. So, that also they say if they can reduce, then that will be a better strategy as far as water conservation is concerned. Then fundamental conservation goal in all this is universal metering. Water metering increases the efficiency of the entire water systems. So, when we are giving, say when we are charging the consumers based upon the metered water, I mean say if the consumers know they are using this much water and they have to pay accordingly according to the units what they are using, then there will be a tendency for the people to reduce the usage of water. So, that way we can further conserve water, or we can reduce the usage of water. So, fundamental conservation goal is a universal metering, and then it is observed, various studies showed that water metering increases the efficiency of the entire water system. That way we can see that pay more means less wastage of water. So, when the society or when the people are paying more for water, then there will be a tendency to reduce the wastage, and then so that way we can conserve the water. So, water department would be able to monitor water usage by public, domestic and manufacturing services, and then accordingly they can say put the rates. So, those who are using more, they have to pay more. So, like that we can give the principle for paying. So, that way we can conserve more water. And then water conservation efforts, we can see that these are primarily directed at farmers, since we, as we discussed in earlier lectures also. So, farmers are using a major chunk of water, say in India say for about 75 to 80%, or on a world average it about 70% of fresh water usage is by farmers. So, that way when the farmers say comes to know that say they have to use less water, when they are using less water, or effective way when they are using water, we can see that say there will be more effective water conservation. So, that way when we look into social aspects, we have to see the various issues like pricing of water, then public participation, then public outreach with respect to water conservation, and then those who are using more, they have to pay more. So, like these various social issues we can consider, and then we can go for these kinds of various kinds of water conservation in this perspective. Then when we look into domestic aspects, we can see that say water is needed for various purposes like cooking, bathing, then washing, etc. So, water saving for domestic purposes, we can see that like various schemes like say we can go for low flow shower heads, then low flush toilets and composting toilets, dual flush toilets use up to 67% less water than conventional toilets. Then seawater or rainwater can be used for flushing toilets. Then faucet aerators which break water flow into the fine droplets to maintain wetting effectiveness while using less water. Then wastewater reuse or recycling systems, which we will be discussing further in later lectures. Then rainwater harvesting, then high efficiency clothes washers, then weather based irrigation controllers, then using low flow taps in wash basins, and automatic faucets is a water conservation faucet. So, like that when we look into domestic aspects, so how much we can reduce say per capita or per person on a domestic basis for cooking or for washing or for say normal usage like a toilet usage or the brushing usage or shaving. So, like that how much water can be reduced say as far as domestic say usage is concerned. So, that way we can see that if you reduce the usage through various means, then we can see that say we can go for better water conservation. Then next one is say when we look into commercial aspects. So, like commercial buildings or the various commercial complexes, they can reduce the use of water. So, water saving for commercial purposes like say various usage like say water will be used for toilet blocks, urinals, or say washing cars or say automobiles. So, like that. So, some of the aspects which we can consider are listed here like waterless urinals, then waterless car washes, then infrared or foot operated taps which can save water by using short bursts of water for rinsing in a kitchen or bathroom. Then pressurized water brooms which can be used instead of a hose to clean sidewalks, then X-ray film process or recirculation systems, then cooling tower conductivity controllers, water saving steam sterilizers for hospitals, then rainwater harvesting. So, like this say when we look into commercial aspects, so there are various ways we can conserve the water. So, first aspect which they say water can be conserved by rainwater harvesting, say wherever water is coming they can store or they can recharge in that location on a, say as far as commercial buildings are concerned, and then for various commercial uses they can reduce the usage of water. So, that is about the water conservation with respect to commercial aspects. Now, when we look into agricultural aspects, as I mentioned agriculture sector is one of the major user of water. So, water saving for agricultural purposes include, say, for crop irrigation, optimal water efficiency means minimizing losses due to evaporation, runoff or subsurface drainage while maximizing the production. So, the motto should be, say, reduce the usage of water, but increase the yield of the crops. So, say by reducing the use, say by various means we can say by reducing the usage, I mean by scientific farming or scientific usage of water, and then say by using say very efficient seeds, say, or the say less use the water, say if you are using the crops which use less water. So, like that various aspects we can consider when we look into agricultural aspects. So, then increase efficiency for existing systems. So, whatever the, say for example, if you are using, so if you are irrigating through flooding, whether we can go for furrow systems or say hole systems, like that. Then reduce the flooding type systems or go for sprinkler or drip type very effective irrigation systems. Then water efficient variety of crops, whether we can utilize, or land preparation for efficient water use. So, we can prepare the land in advance, and then so that the moisture will be conserved within the soil, so that less water utilization is required. That way we can conserve the water. Then use of soil moisture and rainfall sensors to optimize irrigation schedules. So, instead of over irrigating, say nowadays we can go for scientific farming, so that so we can have sensors with respect to the optimum irrigation schedules. So, according to when the plant needs water, then we can irrigate, or there is a stress, water stress, so for the crops, so that we can at that time we can irrigate, and then we can save water, and that way we can have large gains in efficiency. These are possible through measurements and more effective management of the existing irrigation system. So, we can observe in most of the irrigation systems. So, the farmers are using water without metering or without measuring. So, they do not know how much water they are using for the particular crops. So, that way if we can go for some type of measurement, so we can educate the farmers, they are overusing the water. So, that if that can be reduced, they may get better yield also, and we can stop problems like water logging, and then say water quality issues. So, all these things are possible. So, that way when we look into agriculture aspects, say we can go for various means of water conservation. So, that way when we look into water conservation, so as I mentioned, we are looking for efficient use of water. So, efficient water use means, so say what we discussed with respect to what we have discussed so far, we can put into various points like this. So, we can reduce the demands by improving, say if it is domestic sector, by improving personal habits. We can reduce the waste by various means. Then we can create an adequate rate schedule. So, say those who are using more water, they have to pay more. So, like that we can come up with some rate schedule, so that there will be possibility of reduction in water use. Then deriving the benefits from technical developments as well as from water management techniques. So, we can go for various management techniques to reduce the use of water. Then various technical developments like effective flushing system, effective tapping systems. So, like that. Then coordinating the management of hydraulic resources with that of land and economical and social aspects. So, we can coordinate with respect to the hydraulic aspects, then with respect to land management, with respect to crop management, like that. And then say also we can promote the norms and regulations, we can come up with the norms and regulations, and then educate the people, so that say there will be more efficient use of water. So, that way we can conserve the water. So, when we look into say the efficient utilization of water or efficient use of water, we have to consider various types of efficiencies as far as water use is concerned. So, some of the important efficiency norms what we can adopt as far as water use is concerned are listed here. So, first one is the absolute efficiency. So, this is related to use the least amount of water as far as possible. So, in terms of the use of water, so we want to reduce the use as much as possible, that is what we are looking in absolute efficiency. Then economic efficiency means to derive the maximum economical benefits. So, if it is say crop production with less use of water, how maximum crops can be produced, or if it is industrial production with less use of water, how maximum industry productions are possible. Then social efficiency to fulfill the needs of the user community. So, it is not like we are not cutting the supply and conserving the water, but we are supplying the water, but we are educating the society, we are looking the social aspects, and then say we are trying to achieve say by providing normal supply, but through the participation of the users we can reduce the use of water, or we can conserve the water. So, that way we can look into social efficiency. Then ecological efficiency means to guarantee natural resources conservation. So, as we discussed earlier, say the nature, the ecology need minimum use water. So, how effectively that we can supply and we can reduce the usage. So, that is so called ecological efficiency. Then when we look into institutional wise, say the institutional efficiency to qualify the function of an institution regarding its water related tasks. So, when we look into say various industries or various establishments, we have to see that how much water they are conserving, how they can reduce the use of water. So, nowadays it is one of the norm or so called corporate social responsibility by the industries. So, like water conservation, water harvesting, or water reuse, or water recycling. So, like that. So, with respect to that institutional efficiency we can have, we can look into various aspects of that. Then say now we say with respect to what we have considered so far is water conservation with respect to the various uses or the water efficiency. So, within this perspective, now let us look how we can use the water efficiently say for various sectors. So, first let us look into industry. So, efficient water use industry. So, generally the quality of water required depends on the type of industry. So, some industry need a highly purified water, very good quality water, but some industry that may not be needed. So, like that type of industry accordingly we can see. Then its use within the processes. So, from one process to another process within the same industry, the quality of water requirement may vary. Say for example, for washing purpose the quality may not be needed so good, or say cooling purpose even we can go for say less quality water. Then industrial water use can be grouped into three main categories. Say if you generally look into various industry usage like heat transfer, like in thermal power plants or cooling systems, then power generation, and then so power generation means through especially say steam turbines like that, and then use in industrial processes. So, various processes like paint industry or say the manufacturing industry or the pharmaceutical industry like that. So, the main methods for water efficiency in industry are say like recycling. Say with respect to the wastewater we can treat this wastewater and then recycle, and then reuse. So, the say somewhat say for example, the water coming from say some washing can be used for other purposes, or the water used for cooling purpose we can use further for other purposes. Then third aspect is reduction in consumption. So, when we look into the water efficiency in industry, three aspects are there. One is reduction in consumption, then how much water we can recycle, and then how much water we can reuse. So, that way we have to look into efficient water use in industry. So, the aspects of water recycling and reuse will be discussing the next lecture. So, now further aspects when we look into efficient water use industries are concerned. So, two basic activities are necessary in all these three cases, like the recycling, reuse and reduction in consumption. The two basic activities are like we have to measure the amount of water which we are using, and we have to monitor the quality of the water. So, as I mentioned, if we know this much water is used for this purpose, so we have to measure, effective measurement or metering should be there. So, and then also say once we use say particular amount of water for some particular processes, then the water coming out of that process, how much is how much it is polluted or the quality of that water, and whether we can directly use that water for other purposes like that. So, that way we have to look into the metering. So, most basic activity for any efficient use program in the industrial sector, and practice to get the consumption rate. So, that way when we are having water metering, and then say if the industry say we can make them know that this much water is used and that we can reduce. So, that way the reduction or water conservation is possible. When recycling is concerned, so as I mentioned, whether the water used for one process we can use for another purpose, and then reuse or reduction at each stage in the industrial process is absolutely essential when we look into the efficient water using industry. Then recycling to say for example, recycling to cool equipment that generate heat. So, the water used for cooling purpose we can use for other purposes. Then recycling is also used in washing processes. So, wherever say one process to another process we can use, and in reuse systems outflow from one process say treated or untreated used in another requiring a different quality of water. So, reuse means say in recycle we are treating and we are reusing it or we are using it again, but reuse means whatever once it is used for one process, whether we can use for treated in a treated way or untreated way for other purpose. So, that way when we look into efficient water use industry, we have to see, we have to optimize various processes as far as industrial processes are concerned. Then we have to improve the operations or modify the equipment or the attitude of users. So, if we can educate the workers, if we can educate the staff to use less water in an effective way, then we can optimize the water, the use of water, and we can even optimize the processes, the industry processes. So, that way when we look into reuse in industry to meet water shortages, we have to see first practice as much as conservation of water as possible. So, whatever the way we can reduce the use of water, so that is we have to practice first, that means practice as much conservation of water as possible. And then second aspect is recycle only that fraction of wastewater which is in relatively good condition and can be recycled back with little or no treatment. So, recycle means say instead of say treating the water and then reusing, we are trying to recycle it for other purpose, say with little or no treatment. So, that is the second aspects. Then thirdly, arrange more reuse after some treatment to make the industry own wastewater fit for reuse. So, for reuse is concerned by giving some primary treatment or secondary treatment, whether we can reuse the water for say in the next cycle. So, finally, if still more reuse is needed, get external source of wastewater. So, in the industry considered if they are not getting sufficient water, then they can go for say wastewater treatment plant and they can treat their own wastewater and then reuse that wastewater, the treated wastewater, or in some industries like in Mumbai RCF, Rashtriya Chemical Fertilizer Company in Chembur, they are buying the wastewater from the municipal corporation and then they are treating that wastewater, and that treated water they are using for in their industrial purpose. So, that way they can look into still more reuse if it is needed, get external source of wastewater. So, that is also possible. So, that way when we look into the various conservation measures as far as industries are concerned. So, here again I have say summarized the various measures, say like use of pressure reducing orifices. So, wherever more water usage is there, we can say use pressure reducing orifices, so that the rate of flow of water will be reduced. Then recycle of steam condensates back to the boiler. So, especially in thermal power plants or the cooling systems. So, whatever the steam condense, so that can be put say sent back to the boiler, so that much water can be saved. Then adoption of counter current washing, where washing is done in 3 or 4 successive compartments. So, for the industrial processes where the washing is done in 3 or 4 successive compartments, whether we can use counter current washing. Then use of closed circuit cooling system wherever feasible, so that recirculating water are not lost in evaporation. So, we can see that whenever we are looking for say cooling systems, so the say once the water evaporated, that the same water can be say instead of losing that water, whether we can convey back and then condense it and reuse. Then say whether we can go for dry cleaning systems instead of cleaning using the water. Then recycling of water used for conveying materials. So, whether directly while conveying the materials, say whether we can recycle. Then adopt modern cleaner technologies use where say we can use less water. So, compared to the traditional technologies, say we can go for cleaner technologies as far as industrial processes are concerned, where the water demand will be less, and then we can go for better water conservation. Then separate drains carrying wastewaters from different processes to make recycle or reuse more feasible and less cost. So, if you have got two types of or separate drains carrying the wastewater, so that we can give appropriate treatment to that wastewater, and then immediately we can either recycle it or reuse as far as the wastewater is concerned. And then most important aspect is say the awareness campaign, or create and reward awareness among workmen, so that the people will be knowing about the water conservation principles as far as the particular industry is concerned, and then they will be educated, so that we can create and reward awareness among workmen. So, that is about the measures of water conservation industries. Now, let us look action plan for water conservation. So, the various action plans are possible. So, some of the important action plans are listed here, like conservation of surface water resources. So, we can create new storages, we can have more ponds, more lakes or more reservoirs, and then we can renovate the existing tanks and reservoirs, so that we can desilt, we can remove the silt, so that more storage will be possible. So, like that. So, that way we can conserve the surface water resources. Then conservation of groundwater resources. So, here we can go for rainwater harvesting, or we can recharge the water to the aquifer systems. So, conservation of groundwater resources increases groundwater recharge and stop groundwater outflows by subsurface dams, as we discussed in the previous lecture. Then watershed management measures. So, as we have seen many of the earlier lectures, various watershed management measures are very helpful for water conservation. So, as an action plan. Then rainwater harvesting. So, that is one of the important aspects in many of the water conservation schemes. So, like collection and storage of rainwater at the surface or in subsurface aquifer systems before it is lost as surface runoff. Then protection of water quality. So, water quality is a major issue. So, we have to look into say from pollution is a vital aspect of water conservation, and an important component of water conservation involves minimizing water losses. So, like evaporation losses or any kind of losses. Then prevention of water wastage and increasing efficiency in water use. So, most important aspect is efficiency in water use. So, reduce the wastage and increase the efficiency. So, now let us look at the various action plans for various sector. So, if we consider irrigation sector when we look into water conservation. So, as I mentioned, the irrigation sector is the sector where more water is used. So, if we can improve the usage of water, or we can come up with various say very scientific or better performing irrigation measures like drip irrigation or various schemes, then we can go for water conservation, better water conservation. So, performance improvement of irrigation systems and water utilization, like a proper and timely system maintenance, then rehabilitation and restoration of damaged or silted systems, like say small channels or canals, then reduce seepage losses by lining the channels or canals, then restoration or provision of appropriate control structures, then renovation and modernization of existing irrigation systems, then provision of adequate water measuring structures. So, as I mentioned, so if we have say some water measuring structures, so that the farmers will be knowing how much water they are using, so that the water usage can be reduced. Then another important aspect is conjunctive use of surface and groundwater. So, whenever say for example, more surface water is available, so we can allow this water to recharge to the aquifer systems, and then whenever surface water is less available, then we can use this groundwater for say particular use. So, in the areas of where there is threat of waterlogging, this conjunctive use is important. Then we can adopt efficient irrigation systems such as sprinkler, drip and other schemes wherever efficient water use is possible. So, that way these are some of the action plans for irrigation sector. Then also further we can prepare realistic and scientific system operation plan based on availability of water and crop water requirements. So, we can scientifically understand, scientifically study the crop water requirement, accordingly we can supply the water, and then minimize waterlogging and water loss. Then as I mentioned earlier, we can go for scientific farming. So, where the crops will be growing with less water, or we can use less water intensive crops. So, revision of cropping pattern, then training of farmers on excess water use, then mixed cropping pattern, then say rotational cropping. So, all these schemes are very important water conservation measures as far as irrigation sector or agriculture sector is concerned. Then rationalization of water rates to make the system self sustainable. So, if you give the water free of cost, then there will be a tendency for the farmers to use more water. That use of more water may decrease the crop production, and then it may lead to water logging and other related problems. And then of course, say the water which is available for other purpose, by using more water, the water conservation will not be possible. So, that way we have to rationalize the water rate in an effective way, so that system is sustainable. And then another important aspect is formation of water users association and transfer of management to them. So, wherever on a local basis we can form water users association, and then we can transfer the effective utilization or the storage or the supply of the water to the users association, so that there will be better water utilization and water conservation. And then we can promote multiple and efficient use of water, say whether say irrigation to various crops are concerned. And now when we look into action plan for domestic sector, so domestic and municipal sector, as we already discussed, say if we can reduce the use of water through various means, then we can go for better water conservation. So, measures towards reduction of say like conveyance losses, say when we are supplying water through pipelines, whether there is any leakage. So, we can, if we can identify at the earliest and then reduce the conveyance loss, then we can conserve the water. Then management of supply through proper meter, so that people knows how much water they are using. Then intermittent domestic water supply to reduce wasteful usage. So, instead of continuous supply, if intermittent water supply is there, then the rates may be reduced. Then realization of appropriate water charges for sustainable water supply and reduce wastage. So, as I mentioned earlier, so we have to see the sustainability, and then if we can increase the water charges, so there will be the supply will be sustainable and wastage will be reduced. And then creation of awareness to make attitudinal change. So, we have to see that the people who are using more water for say various purposes, whether we can change their attitude, so that they use less water, and that way we can conserve the water. Then modification design of accessories such as flushing tanks, taps, etc. Then of course, on a domestic side, whether we can recycle the water and whether we can reuse the water. Say for example, water coming from kitchen sinks we can use for gardening, or the water coming from the flushing system with some treatment, whether we can use for other purposes. Then industrial sector is concerned, like whether we can modernizing the industrial processes to reduce the water requirement, as we already discussed. Then whether we can setting up norms for water budgeting, so whether they can have the water budgeting, so that say the industries can reduce the use of water, so that better water conservation is possible. And as we discussed, the recycling of water is very important, especially in recirculating cooling systems. Then proper processing of effluents by industrial units to adhere to the norms for disposal. Then rational pricing of industrial water requirement to ensure consciousness and action for adopting water saving technologies. So, now most of the industries, our main purpose is, or main objective is to achieve zero liquid discharge, that means zero wastewater coming from the industry. So, that we have to keep on reusing or recycle the water, the wastewater through various means, and then use the very efficient water efficient technologies in the various industrial processes. So, that way when we look into industrial use, the water conservation possibilities include some of the possibilities I have listed here, like using fogging nozzle to cool products instead of water, then installing inline strainers on all spray headers, regular inspection of nozzles for clogging, then adjusting pump cooling and water flushing to the minimum required level, then determine the whether discharge from any one operation can be substituted for the fresh water supply to another operation, and choosing conveying system that use water more efficiently, and handling waste material in a dry mode wherever possible. So, these are some of the way the water conservation possible in various industries. And then further, say replacing high volume hoses with high pressure low volume cleaning systems, then equipping all hoses with spring loaded shut off nozzles, then instruct employees to use hoses only whenever necessary, then replacing worn out equipments with water saving models, then turning off all flows during shutdown unless flows are essential for cleanup, then adjusting flows in sprays and other lines to meet minimum requirements, then sweeping and shoveling may be practiced instead of hosing down the floors, then driveways, loading docks, parking areas, etc., including washing cars, trucks, buses less often, so that we can conserve the water. Then avoiding runoff and making sure that sprinklers are used in gardens, lawns. So, this way various say we can use various possibilities, say depending upon the industry, depending upon the processes, depending upon the rates. So, there are various possibilities as far as the water conservation in the industries are concerned. Then as far as domestic purpose is concerned, water conservation possibilities include timely detection and repair of all leaks. So, leak is a major issue, about 20 to 30% water is lost in leaking. So, that way whether we can detect it and repair. Then minimize use of water for all domestic uses such as bathing, brushing, shaving, washing, etc., by various means as we already discussed, and then avoid water wastage in cooking, drinking, washing floors, etc. Then minimum use of water for watering of lawns and gardens, then installation of high pressure low volume nozzles on spray washers, then installation of float control valves on the makeup line, then washing vehicles less often, then use of recycled water, like that. So, this way we can see that as far as domestic sector is concerned, there are various possibilities, various conservation possibilities. So, depending upon the situation, depending upon the location, depending upon the nature of the people, we can adopt various schemes as far as water conservation is considered. And then also in case of big establishment like hotels, large offices and industrial complexes, community centers, etc., we can go for dual pipe water supply. So, under such arrangements, one supply can carry fresh water for drinking, bathing and human consumption, whereas recycled water for second line. So, we can have a dual system. So, one is for fresh water, another for wastewater. So, that can be used for various purposes. Similarly, water harvesting we can make it compulsory in various domestic say housing colonies or various commercial systems. So, water runoff including rainwater harvesting in all new buildings on plots of 100 square meter and above may be made mandatory. Then as I mentioned, another option is, so of course, we have to educate the people. So, we can have a association called Water Users Association. In many areas it has been found very effective, the formation of Water Users Association, and if we can entrust the Water Users Association the water distribution and water storage and other various aspects, then it has been found to be very effective. So, water user association is an association of water users generally prevalent in irrigation sector. Then involvement of farmers in water management will facilitate equitable and judicious allocation of irrigation waters among the farmers of say head, middle and tail reaches, say like in a canal system or wherever it is, and then improve collection of water charges from users. Then with improvement in collection of water charges, irrigation projects may not languish for maintenance for want of funds, and in this way overall efficiency of irrigation system will improve. So, that way water users association can play a major role as far as the efficient water use or water conservation is concerned. And then in domestic sector, we can see the water user association can help in finding illegal tapping of water from supply lines. Then we can identify, they can identify the leakages and losses and other illegal activities. So, that way water user association will be very effective. Then in industrial sectors, water user association help in identifying the cases of illegal discharge of industrial effluents to water bodies. Then in conservation of water, water user association can help. Then water users association may be duly empowered through legalization to punish the errant water users. So, wherever say an industry or domestic or the agriculture sector, we can give appropriate powers to the water user association, so that they can punish the errant users, so that the say effective utilization is possible. Then another important aspect in the conservation, water conservation is considered is water audit. So, water audit generally determines the amount of water lost from a distribution system due to leakage and other reasons such as theft, unauthorized or illegal withdrawals from the system, and the cost of such losses to the utility. So, when a water distribution system is there, we have to assess how much water is distributed, how much water is reached to the consumers, how much water is used by the consumers, how much water is lost in the processes. So, that water audit will show. So, this has been found to be very effective water conservation measure. So, then comprehensive water audit gives a detailed profile of distribution system and water uses, then facilitating effective management of resources with improved reliability. So, we can increase the reliability, and then we can reduce the leakage or reduce the wastage by going for a water audit. So, the water audit helps in correct diagnosis of the problem faced in order to suggest optimum solutions. Then water audit is also an effective tool for realistic understanding and assessment of the present performances levels and efficiency of services and adaptability of the system for future expansion and rectification. So, that way this water audit is very important, so that we can achieve water conservation, very effective water conservation through water auditing. So, some of the important elements of water audit include a record of the amount of water produced, say like total water supplied, which is maybe obtained through pipelines or from reservoirs or from the aquifer systems, then water delivered to metered users. So, that is directly we can get, and what delivered to unmetered users through various means we can calculate, then water loss and suggested measures to address water loss. Then water audit also improves knowledge and documentation of the distribution systems, then problems and risk areas, and a better understanding of what is happening to the water after it leaves the source point. So, if we consider a major say source from where the treated water we are supplying, and then it goes through the city or the areas considered, then how much water is obtained to the metered users or unmetered users, and then how much is the loss, and how we can improve. So, all these say an effective water conservation will be possible through an appropriate water audit. Say water audit report then contain amount of water earmarked available to the service, amount of water utilized both through metered and unmetered supplies, then water loss and efficiency of the system along with the reasons for such water losses, then suggested measures to check water loss and improve efficiency. So, overall theme is to improve the efficiency, the water use efficiency, so by water auditing. So, an effective water audit report, so we can say by studying the various aspects we can come up with an effective water audit report. So, an effective water audit report may contain detection of leak in distribution systems, taking timely action for plugging such leaks, reducing the conveyance losses of water and improving the efficiency of the system, and water audit of the system like undertaken at regular interval of time, say for example at least an annual basis is very essential, so that we can go for better water conservation. So, to finally say water audit also should be conducted categorically in two systems like the resource audit or supply side audit, and then consumption audit or demand side. So, this should be water audit should be supply side as well as demand side, and then all efforts should be made for improvement of water use efficiency and distribution systems, so that we can achieve water conservation, and then efficient development and management of the source of water. So, that way water audit is very important system in any water conservation plans. So, a very effective water audit report will be very useful as far as water conservation is concerned. So, now finally to conclude this lecture, some important remarks. So, due to lack of proper operational maintenance, there is huge loss of water as we can observe in many sectors, agricultural, industrial or domestic sector. So, we have to go for improved operation and maintenance schemes. Then for developing water resources, traditional water conservation methods to be adopted in conjunction with modern conservation technologies. So, it is not only modern technology, we have to marry the ancient wisdom or the traditional system with the modern technology and then come up with very effective water conservation measures. Then one of the important aspect in water conservation is rainwater harvesting, traditional water storages, check dams and similar structures that we have to consider. Then we can have building bylaws, we can suitably modify to introduce mandatory rooftop rainwater harvesting or the water the groundwater recharge schemes. And then in order to conserve water, we can go for recycling and reuse, so depending upon the type. Then timely and need based irrigation, so instead of going for simply irrigating the farms, we can identify what should be the interval, whether the crops are water stress, then we can go for timely and need based irrigation. So, overall say we have to go for strategic mass awareness campaign. The people should know the importance of water conservation and how the supply can be improved through water conservation, and then the demand can be met. So, that way the people participation is very important aspect as far as water conservation is concerned. So, before closing this lecture, some of the important references used in today's lecture are listed here. Then a tutorial question: critically analyze and study various water conservation possibilities in India for various sectors such as agricultural, domestic, industrial, commercial and ecological sectors. Then why water conservation is important in sustainable development. Then few self evaluation questions, discuss the importance of water conservation, what are the important goals of water conservation, what is efficient water use, what are the different types of efficiencies, what are the important measures of water conservation in industry, discuss the water conservation possibilities for industry, agriculture and domestic sectors, then describe water audit and its various features. So, some more assignment questions, illustrate the necessity of water conservation, discuss importance of water conservation with reference to social, domestic, commercial and agricultural aspects, then discuss the efficient water use in industry, what are the possible action plans for water conservation for irrigation, domestic and industrial uses, what are the roles of water uses association. So, in today's lecture what we are discussing is water conservation, what are the goals of water conservation, what is the necessity of water conservation, and for various sectors like agricultural, industrial or domestic sector, how we can achieve, what are the ways we can go for water conservation. So, in the next lecture we will be discussing about water recycling and reuse in this module. Thank you.